come here and give an overview of what we're going to be talking about. But actually we thought it may be really good to just start off together, embracing the journey together of what we're going to be looking at over the next 3 months or so. And then the rest of the teachings on the subject will be recorded for you, and you can use them at any time and discuss them with friends, family, and your groups, etc. So the theme is looking at Jesus and what he's like. And obviously this could be as long as a piece of string, couldn't it? And I know around our table we have many various discussions about, who he is to me. It's actually different for every person, and that's the nature of the relationship with Jesus, isn't it? It's slightly different for every person. It's unique. But the reason we wanted to look at this more fully is that we want to fall more in love with Jesus than we already are, and we want to know him better than we already do. And the reason we want to do that is because he's asking us to do that. God has been saying to us, he wants us to fall more passionately in love with Jesus. He wants us to be full of Jesus' compassion for the world. He wants us to be making Jesus our first love. And it's easy to sort of go along your Christian life, or your life generally, if you're not a Christian, and actually begin to sort of just pull away sometimes, or just get a bit distracted and lose that first love. And God wants to heat us all up again with the passion for God that he wants us to have. So we're going to be hopefully deeply exploring some of the things that Jesus said about and did in a way that wins our hearts back fully to him, because he wants wholehearted people after him. So you've all described Jesus to yourself. I'm not going to ask you to come out with those things. You've had discussions. But maybe, I don't know if you know how Jesus described himself. Because maybe some of our answers would be good if they were sort of in line with that. And there's a place in the Bible where Jesus described himself, and he didn't often describe himself, but he did actually say that he is gentle and lowly. That's how he described his heart. And I don't know if you said that around the table. I don't think we mentioned those traits. But that's how he described himself. I'm gentle, I'm humble, lowly. And there's a book of the same name that we're going to be referring to as we look more deeply at Jesus' gentleness and lowliness over the next few whiles. Now for me, it was a shocking discovery to find out that the complete work of Jesus on the cross makes those who believe in him and receive his grace, that's you and me, most of us here, forgiven and unpunishable for wrongs past, present and future. That was a massive revelation to us in life when we realised that the grace message of God extended, not just that he saved you for your past and died for you for that, but he has actually died for your present and your future and mine, and that renders us totally unpunishable because Jesus has been punished. So we're here to live in the goodness of his grace, which is extraordinarily relieving. So that was a big enough revelation for us. But this book has provided a way of going even beyond that, because it really delves into the calling of Jesus and his heart for us when we mess up, but we do go to him. So it really took grace even further than I had understood from this revelation I'd already just mentioned to you. So I'm constantly being surprised by the extent of the love and grace of God, because it's always so much more than I can grapple with. And that's what I'm hoping we will get from looking at this book together particularly. And the book is by a guy called Dane Ortman. Nikki and I were with Graham and Nicola praying for him this morning, and we were talking about this book, and I was going, well, it's by Dan Ortman. And she's going, oh no, babe, it's not Dan Ortman, it's Dante Ortman. We go home and it's Dane. But he bases his book on the words from Jesus in Matthew 11:28-30, which if you did Lectio 365 today, you will realise this is exactly the same passage. No coincidence. So it says this: are you weary, carrying a heavy burden? Then come to me. I will refresh your life, for I am your oasis. Simply join your life with mine. Learn my ways, and you'll discover that I'm gentle, humble or lowly, easy to please. You will find refreshment and rest in me, for all that I require of you will be pleasant and easy to bear. I don't know about you, but that's not the God that I was told about when I was trying to find him age 14, 15. I wasn't told that he was really easy to please, and thought he'd be really difficult to please. Didn't you? And this is the only place in 89 chapters of the 4 Gospels that Jesus tells us about his heart. And he says, I am gentle, humble, lowly, easy to please. That is his descriptor. So that is really good if we begin to believe that and receive that and live in the very good of that. Because he is like that, he assures us we can find refreshment and rest, not burden and striving, if we will go to him with our weariness and our burdens. I don't know about you, but I think many of us, and I'm including myself in firmly here, identify with feeling wearied or burdened. I don't know if the last year and a half, 2 years have done that to most of you, but certainly for me, wearied and burdened actually describes quite a lot of my days. But here's Jesus' invitation then. I'm here for you. I'm here for the weary and the burdened. I'm inviting you to come. I am your place of relief. What relief is that? At the start of every year, I try and seek God what he might be saying to either me or to us, maybe as a church family, especially as we find ourselves at this time in a bit of uncertainty about how it's all going to look. And on January the 2nd, I felt this word from Psalm 126, verses 1 to 6, really stood out. And it was titled, Restored. And I think, great, weary and burdened, restored. This is what we need. It was like a dream come true when you freed us from our bondage and brought us back to Zion. We laughed and overflowed with gladness. We were left shouting for joy and singing your praise. All the nations saw it and joined in saying, the Lord has done great miracles for them. Yes, he did mighty miracles, and we are overjoyed. Now, Lord, do it again. Restore us to our former glory. May streams of your refreshing flow over us until our dry hearts are drenched again. Those who sow their seeds with tears will reap a harvest with joyful shouts of glee. They may weep as they go out carrying their seed to sow, but they will return with joyful laughter and shouting with gladness as they bring back armloads of blessing and a harvest overflowing. And I'm pondering those verses at the start of this year and how they actually relate to us. But it seems to me as you read it that to be restored in every way, and surely this is what we and the world need in 2022. We can see two things in this passage. We can see, number one, we can ask that God refreshes our dry old hearts. Where they may be dry, hard, barren, his Spirit can make us soft, responsive and fruitful again. So maybe, like me, that's your prayer. This first aspect, asking God to drench our hearts again, is what we need. The second thing that we see in this passage is that we can risk the little seed we have and sow it into the ground, trusting God for harvest. Because the alternative that I think a lot of us can get involved in is that we can hold on to the little we have, thinking it's all running out, we haven't got much reserve. We haven't got that reserve of time, that reserve of energy, that resource. And so we can just be concerned that we need it ourselves and our families and our children need it. And we might not have enough if we sow it. But actually, what God's saying here is you can see harvest if you will risk sowing the little reserve you have. And so there's an encouragement to us here. And that's why it says you'll go out sowing in tears. And when you look at the commentary on it, it says you sow in tears because actually you know that if God doesn't come through with the harvest here, you've just used the seed that was for bread for your kids. You've just ploughed that into the ground. So you're crying as you're doing it because it feels like a big sacrifice potentially. But then everybody gains because the harvest comes in, because God blesses it, because we've done what He's asked us to do. We've sown our little, and He's giving more than enough for us and our children and those around who also need what He has. That's why there's this joyful laughter. So do we need restoration individually? Do we need it as a family? I believe the answer to that is, well, certainly for me, it's yes to both. So how many of us then are regularly going to God for that restoration and refilling? I don't know if we do just get ourselves distracted sometimes, but this is the invitation to come. If you need filling, come, let me drench your hearts. Let me restore you. And I thought tonight would be good. You know, you can wonder why are we around tables and talking about this? Well, it'd be good to start the year together, deciding to actually
ask God, if we have this need and we resonate with it, together to pour out his Spirit again upon us collectively and individually. And then also to just give us a boldness to go and sow some of our little reserve of seed for the sake of the saving of many and the harvest to come. And it's also true that if we fail to regularly go to God for restoration and we don't get the relief, rest and refreshment we need from him, things are likely to feel worse or even get worse. And so I was thinking, what's the reason why we don't go to him then? And maybe it's because we forget the other important truth that was just in that passage in that translation, which says that he's easy to please. Maybe we don't go because we think he's not easy to please, that he's going to be saying, you again? What are you doing before me again? Moaning about your lot, telling me you let me down again? Come on, buck up. But he's not like that. He's easy to please, not critical, not judgmental, not constantly picking us up and reminding us of our failures. Although many other people do, and in fact, the person who will do it most to you is yourself. But Jesus isn't like that. So many of us need to deal with a wrong perception of God and let this other revelation of his gentleness and lowliness come through. So important. And that is the main message of this book that we're going to be sort of focusing some of our teaching around. Obviously, I'm not focusing it there, not the Bible, but he is particularly expounding on these verses in the Bible about Jesus' gentleness and lowliness. I'm going to give you a couple of quotes. This is the first one. Jesus is tender, open, willing, understanding and accommodating to all those who come to him, who cry to him, who take his yoke upon them. For us who have come to him, our sins, failures, doubts and insecurities can never outweigh his gentle embrace. It's who he is towards his own. Gentleness is who he is. And he cannot ungentle himself any more than we can permanently change our eye colour. I put the word permanently in, that's mine, because I know we can all wear lenses. Permanently. God knows that life in our present world is one of unending labour and toil. That's what the Bible says about unending labour and toil, which is exhausting physical work. And being heavy laden and weary is quite a natural state for most people. But God promises rest so that our work is sustained by his kindness and gentleness. And Sabbath rest was his gift to us so that we would have everything we needed for the week of work to come and to show us that we are a free people and not slaves, because slaves didn't get a Sabbath. But free people get a Sabbath. Most of us have got to find how to get out of slavery again and get back into being able to enjoy Sabbath. And I don't know about you, but it's pretty jolly difficult. We keep trying. There's a few families that are breaking through and really seeing the benefits, but it's no easy thing when we've got into such a culture of being driven all the time. And the rest he offers us is not just copping out and saying, well, I'm not doing anything. It's soul rest. And many in our society are burdened, struggling with soul issues, often becoming and being labelled mental health issues. But there's such a need for us, therefore, to find the promised rest for our souls and the peace and well-being that's possible through having that rest with God. Not just putting your feet up and watching TV, but having rest with God. Getting God's rest. It's not just the absence of doing something, it's actually gaining something from him that puts something in and relieves us and gives us well-being. And so there'll be a teaching recorded on the topic of rest for our souls coming in on February the 13th from Nikki. Anything you want to give us as a headline, Nikki? Come and tell us a little nugget that you'll be giving us.
Evening everyone, lovely to see you. I'm really excited to be looking at this whole area of rest for our souls. So I'm going to be speaking in February and just exploring a bit deeper. Now, this verse that I know Bev's already read out, but this is something God's really been speaking to me over probably the last year, and I'm still needing fresh revelation on it. But come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I want to explore, what does that invitation mean, to be yoked to Jesus, I think it's about a lifestyle, isn't it? Bev's been touching on what it looks like, not to live out of constant striving, which is where I can find myself, wanting to do those things to please not only ourselves but others, and in work cultures, in busy lives with families, etc. But what is Jesus? What does it look like to be living yoked to Jesus and living that lifestyle? So I think some of the keys certainly coming out of the book are about knowing the kindness of Jesus, that actually when we can embrace that Jesus looks upon us with kindness, and that's what his yoke is. But I also believe it's about how do we allow Jesus to bear the heaviness of the yoke, if you like, and we lean into him. So I want to be looking at keys of that, learning how to shoulder the weight of life with ease. And certainly that's really what I'm calling out for at this time and wanting. So I'm really expecting that God's going to give some revelation. So I'm hoping to be sharing that with you. That's February the 13th. That's going to be coming out on video. So do look out for that. Maybe do gather with friends and look at that together. So that's just a highlight.
Lovely. Forward to that. Great. So in essence, Jesus was and is love and compassion in skin, and he gladly, culturally embraced everyone, including those like the lepers and prostitutes in his day, labelled unclean and unacceptable by Jewish society, but in reality no more unclean than the rest of us. Jesus touched everyone and made them clean, rather than making himself unclean through the connection. Such is the impact and power of the love of God on lives. So there was a huge thing, wasn't there, in the day of people being scared stiff. If they got involved with people that was slightly, defiling, they would spend their time needing to then go through all these purification rituals, whereas Jesus just took himself into the situation and he brought the cleansing. He wasn't defiled by them, they were cleansed by him. And it's the same with us. We've got the same spirit, the same way, so we can just connect with everyone as he does and see the impact of God on lives. So we don't become contaminated if we give our time to those aspects of seeing a transforming effect on people who others might think are morally questionable or disgusting aspects of our world. We should be encouraged not to be afraid and to confidently get stuck in. Who is in us is greater than anything we might encounter in the world. So that was a real challenge in the day to the religious system that was in place, but I think it's also a challenge to us today to not worry about getting stuck in. And the message of this book then takes things to another level. It actually makes the point that it gives Jesus joy and fulfills his calling to get involved with the most shameful, disgusting and morally deficient things in life. This is what he came for. And so the Bible tells us in Hebrews 12:2 that for the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross and calls us therefore to fix our eyes on him who pioneers and perfects our faith. So is our faith faltering? Are there weeds of unbelief growing in the gardens of our heart alongside the seeds of faith? Are we struggling with sinful attitudes and behaviours? Are we letting God and ourselves and others down? Are we distracted and neglecting our relationship with God? Are we nursing a secret shame? Or are we just numbed out? Then it gives Jesus joy when we go to him like that. It fulfills his calling to bring the help and relief that we need, and it makes him happy. And I guess it's like a parent with a child. You can see a child struggling with something, they won't be helped. And you're just waiting for them to let you help because it just gives you such pleasure. It doesn't, it just gives you such pleasure to see them doing well. And it's no different really for the Father in heaven and for Jesus to want to actually get embroiled in our lives, even if they're messy, and enable us to come through. It gives God joy. Another quote from the book: Jesus' joy, comfort, happiness and glory increase and enlarge through showing grace and mercy, relieving, pardoning and comforting his body on earth. He's not fazed by our need, distress and emptiness. He died to make possible an endless supply of grace and mercy to us. He died to draw us to himself, the source of that endless supply, that we might find joy with him. When we come to him for love, mercy and help in our anguish and sinfulness, we are going with the flow of his greatest desires, not against them. As fully God, Christ shares in his Father's immortal, eternal, unchangeable fullness. As fully man, Christ's heart is not drained by our coming to him again and again. If we in our failings and fears hold back from him, we deny ourselves and him comfort. Hebrews 12 shows that on the other side of the cross, his high priestly work fulfilled, Jesus' joy was in seeing his people forgiven. The future joy of seeing us cleansed and pardoned saw him through his arrest, crucifixion, burial and resurrection. He wants us to draw strength from his love. He wants us to be with him, John 17:24. He sees us as part of himself, Ephesians 5:29-30, and he wants to care for us. That's why he said to those who hurt his people, "Why are you persecuting me?" Because of his identification with us. Acts 9:4. And Jesus is comforted when we draw on his atoning work of grace because his body is getting healed. Don't forget he's the head and we're the body, so as he heals us, he's seeing the whole thing heal. It's a beautiful thing for him. So when in life we feel like throwing in the towel, we have a friend who understands and sits close with us in it. We're never alone. Our difficulties draw out a depth of feeling in him beyond what we know. He enters into our suffering with us and brings us through because his heart is bound up with our hearts. When we sin, we are encouraged to bring our mess to Jesus because he knows just how to receive us. He doesn't handle us roughly. He doesn't scowl and scold. He doesn't lash out. And all this restraint on his part is not because he has a diluted view of our sinfulness. He knows our sinfulness more deeply than we do. Indeed, we are just aware of the tip of the iceberg of our depravity, even in our most searching moments of self-knowledge. His restraint simply flows from his tender heart for his people. And rather than dispensing grace to us from on high, he gets down with us. He puts his arms around us. He deals with us in the way that is just what we need. He deals with us gently. So no matter our state, no matter our past, no matter our presenting struggles, no matter our objections, nothing whatsoever can stop Jesus gently embracing us when we come to him. And I keep saying that all the time, when we come to him. Because you've got to go to him. I've got to go to him. If we do, he will never cast us out, no matter what. We might say, "You don't understand. I've really messed up in all kinds of ways." "I know," he responds. "You know most of it, but there's a perversity down deep inside that is hidden from everyone." "I know it all." "It's not just my past, it's my present too. I understand." "But I don't know if I can break free of this anytime soon." That's the only kind of person I'm here to help. The burden's heavy and getting heavier all the time. Then let me carry it. It's too much to bear. Not for me. My offences aren't only towards others, they're against you. Then I'm most suited to forgive them. The more ugliness you find, the more you'll get fed up with me. Whoever comes to me, I will not cast out. We can never provide a reason for Christ to close off his heart to us, his beloveds. Isn't this amazing grace? Isn't this amazing favour we don't deserve? But it's still there in the blessing of God on us, just because we've gone to him, just because we've made him our place and our person. And that's never going to change. Isaiah 55:7-9 says this: "Let him," and by him he means the wicked and unrighteous, "return to the Lord, that he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." Wow. There it is, in black and white. So for some it's the sin issue, but for others it's not so much the sin issue, it's the suffering that's the problem. Pain piles up, we become a bit numb as time passes, and it can feel like God's abandoned us. Because surely this is not how being loved by a gentle and loving Saviour should feel or be. If this is so, just keep coming. Because it's impossible for him to not comfort you and cast you aside. The loveliness of Christ's heart draws us and makes him beautiful to us. That's what we want this 3 months to do, and set us up for the next however many years, forever. We want his heart to draw us and make him beautiful to us, so that we will love him aright. His gentleness and love win us to him. His welcome is a surprise, and it walks us into the felt love of God. His is a heart that never overreacts, never excuses, never lashes out. It burns with the desire for the poor and the vulnerable, and has a shared solidarity with those who are suffering. So let's consider Jesus' heart for us and give our souls room to be won over by him again. And this is what, as I say, we're going to concentrate on doing. And those are going to be 2 recorded teachings to help us along the way. Nikki's told you about hers. And on March the 13th, a month after that, Dan will be speaking on Christ's mercy. So Dan, do you want to say a nugget on that one? And then I'll just be bringing it to a close.
Yeah, just a quick one. For me, the grace and mercy of Jesus are the things that really move me. Whenever I see it in action, whenever I hear about it, it's the thing that really gets me, because there's something truly beautiful about that. And it isn't just that Jesus shows us mercy and shows us grace, but that he is mercy and is grace. It is his very character and his very nature. It's the one thing that C.S. Lewis said set Christianity apart from any other religion, is the grace of God. I'm just going to read a couple of one very quick quote from here, which talks about the mercy of Jesus, and I think why we all need it, why it's so fundamental. We can be a moral dead people, or we can be moral dead people. Either way, we're dead. The mercy of God reaches down and rinses clean not only obviously bad people, but fraudulently good people, both of whom equally stand in need of resurrection. God is rich in mercy. He doesn't withhold mercy from some kinds of sinners while extending it to others. Christ was not sent to mend wounded people, or wake sleepy people, or advise confused people, or inspire bored people, or spur on lazy people, or educate ignorant people, but to raise dead people. And that is the effect of Christ's mercy in our lives. It brings us life, it makes us alive in him, and it allows us to live with him. And so I'm excited to be exploring this in March.
Great. I'm excited to hear that. So just as we close then, let's settle ourselves in our chairs. Let's pause. Let's breathe in the presence of God. And if you want to, and it's my prayer tonight that we let ourselves respond, that if we want him to win our hearts again and lead us back into his felt love, igniting our passion and compassion once more, let's ask him to drench our dry hearts and make them fruitful to him. And let's ask him in these moments quietly if there's anything he wants us personally to know in this moment. And literally open yourself up after asking him that, and take the first thing that you see, hear, think or feel. Because that's when God comes, before we put all our doubts and extras on. And then maybe take a moment in your circles around your tables to share your thoughts from this evening. You might want to talk about something that stood out to you through listening to this. Or you may want to share what God's just spoken to you in this pause, if it's appropriate to share it. And then you might want to just finish taking bread and wine together and maybe blessing each other to really receive all that you feel God's got for you, having listened to him. So, and we thoroughly recommend, as I'm sure you will know, that you get hold of this book and give it a good old read as we're going along over the next 3 months as well. So let's just take a moment. I'm going to pray. Jesus, as we pause, as we breathe slowly, as we just give you a moment, thank you that you inhabit our moments, God. Thank you that you come quickly. You don't have to earn over a long period of time a big wait before you speak, before you assure us that you're here. You're here right away. You've always been here. And as we incline our ear to you now, our ears, God, we just pray that you'd have your way and speak what you want to speak to us. We want to say your servants will listen. We want to say that we want to be passionately in love with you and obedient to you. In this new year, we want to be ready to serve you. We want to be ready to love you more than we've ever loved you before. And we need your Spirit to raise up those dead places in us. We need your Spirit to water our dry old hearts and make them fruitful. Because we want to see the harvest, God. We're so desperate to see the harvest of people coming to know you, your family expanding, full of life, constantly growing. So work on our hearts. Help us to sow the little we have. And we just expect that joy to come, God, because it gives you joy to answer this prayer. So speak to us individually, speak to us together as we give you this time.